the air conditioning unit was on the ground. That was the first thing Michelle Lemus noticed when she pulled into her driveway in Simsbury, Connecticut, in the fall of 2025. It had been in her window when she left. Now it was lying in the grass beneath the sill, pushed out from the inside. Her garbage cans were torn open and scattered across the driveway. She sat in her car and put those two facts together, and the conclusion arrived slowly and then all at once. Something had pushed her air conditioner into her house from the outside, and her teenage daughter was inside. "I remember thinking, 'Oh dear, that's not good,'" she said. "I knew that there was a bear in my house." Her daughter had heard it come through the window and done the only thing there was to do. She had walked into a bedroom, stepped into the closet, and closed the door. And she stayed there while a black bear moved through the rooms of her house looking for food. Simsbury police arrived and drove the animal back out by standing in the yard and yelling until it left. It had done about $420 in damage and eaten what it came for. Here is the detail that turns this from an accident into something stranger. The bear was not a stranger. The Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection already had a file on it. They had tagged it, numbered it, and tracked it. It was an adult male they called Bear 203, and it had a documented history of conflicts, agricultural damage, attempted home entries, structural damage related to garbage. This animal had been building toward the walking into that house for a long time. The state knew it existed. The state knew what it had been doing. And the state could not stop it from deciding, on an ordinary afternoon, that the inside of an occupied home in a Connecticut suburb was worth breaking into. It would mean less if Bear 203 were unusual. It is the opposite of unusual. It is the pattern. A century ago, there were almost no black bears in Connecticut. There were almost no black bears anywhere in the settled Northeast. The 19th century had been catastrophic for them. The forests cut down for farmland and timber. The bears themselves shot and trapped without restriction until the few that survived were pushed into the steepest and most remote ground that nobody had bothered to clear. In Connecticut, the animal was functionally gone. A person could live an entire life in the state and never see one, because there were barely any to see. That is not the world we live in now. Today, bears have been documented in all 169 of Connecticut's towns. Every single one. Wildlife biologists estimate the state holds only around 1,000 to 1,200 bears, which makes what those bears are doing even harder to explain, because a population that small should be easy to overlook. Instead, it is everywhere. In 2025, Connecticut logged more than 8,000 black bear sightings. More than 500 of them came from the single town of Simsbury. And the bears are not just being seen, they are coming inside. Over the last 6 years, bears entered Connecticut homes 265 times. A decade ago, that number was fewer than 10 in a year. In 2025 alone, there were 40 home entries. The line on that graph does not climb. It launches. This is the point where the story is supposed to deliver its tidy explanation, and on the surface it has one. The forests grew back over the 20th century. The bears were protected where they had once been hunted. The population recovered and expanded into the land it used to occupy. That much is true. And it is the explanation that wildlife agencies will give you. And it is not wrong. But it does not actually explain what Michelle Lemus found in her driveway. Because the forest recovering does not tell a bear to push an air conditioner out of a window. Population recovery explains why bears exist in Connecticut again. It does not explain why they are walking down residential streets in a state defined by its suburbs, why they are turning up in commuter towns and strip mall parking lots, why an animal with the entire recovered forest available to it keeps choosing the row of houses at the edge of the trees. The bears are not running out of wild land and spilling into the suburbs as a last resort. They are walking past the wild land to get to the suburbs on purpose. The reason they are doing it is the part that should unsettle you, because it is not really about the bears at all. It is about us. A black bear biologist in Vermont described what has happened over the last 30 years in a single sentence. As the bear population recolonized its range, she said, the animals have been slowly taught that backyards and town centers are a really good place to find high-quality food. Taught. Not driven, not forced, not displaced. Taught, by us, one garbage can at a time. It takes a bear hours of foraging to gather enough acorns and natural food to get through a day. It takes minutes to tip over a bird feeder or open a trash can. A black bear is one of the most intelligent and opportunistic animals in North America, and it can do that math. Once it learns that the neighborhood is the easiest meal in its entire range, it does not forget. Every successful raid teaches the lesson again, and the lesson is always learned in the same place, where we live. Wildlife managers have a clinical term for what Bear 203 was. A bear that learns to associate houses and people with food becomes habituated, comfortable around humans, and food-conditioned, linking neighborhoods directly to a meal. A food-conditioned bear causes more damage and poses more risk than a bear that never made the connection. Bear 203 did not wander into that house in Simsbury. It had been trained over months of successful garbage raids that no one managed to stop, to understand that a house was simply a container for food that had not been opened yet. And Connecticut is not an exception, it is a preview. In 2022, more than 46,000 human bear incidents were reported to agencies across the United States, with encounters climbing in 18 states from New Jersey to Texas to California. In New Jersey, one of the most crowded states in the country, nuisance reports have repeatedly broken past 1,700 in a single year, with bears pushing deep into suburbs and turning up on porches and decks. In the foothill suburbs of Southern California, bears move easily between the San Gabriel Mountains and dense neighborhoods like Arcadia, feeding on trash and wandering the streets. A UCLA researcher studying the spread said it is not hard to imagine black bears appearing in Los Angeles neighborhoods within a decade. He called it the new reality. The honest skeptic has a real objection here, and it deserves a straight answer. Black bears are not hunting us. The species is not naturally aggressive toward people. Most encounters are defensive, not predatory, and a bear's strong preference is to avoid us entirely. The thousands of sightings are overwhelmingly an animal eating garbage, not an animal stalking a person. And the blame, in the most literal sense, points back at us. In Vermont, improperly stored garbage was a factor in nearly half of all bear conflicts over a 12-year stretch. The bears are at our doors because we left the door propped open with food. Every word of that is true. And none of it makes the situation less strange. It makes it stranger. Because the mystery was never whether bears are dangerous. The mystery is why an animal that was erased from these states 100 years ago is now established in every town in Connecticut, surging across a third of the country and adapting to life among us faster than anyone can manage it. The unsettling answer is that nobody decided this, and nobody can easily undo it. We brought the forests back. We protected the animal. And then, without ever intending to, we taught a large, brilliant, opportunistic predator that the richest and safest territory in its whole world is the inch of ground directly outside our homes. And then it started raising its young there. 10 years ago, female bears with cubs were reported in fewer than 50 Connecticut towns. In just the last 3 years, they have been reported in 119. That is the number that should stop you. This is not a wave of lone males drifting through and moving on. It is a breeding population settling in, denning, birthing, and raising cubs in the dense suburban core of one of the most crowded states in America. The cubs born in those 119 towns will never have to learn what Bear 203 learned the hard way. They are being born already knowing it. To them, the neighborhood will not be a discovery. It will be the only home they have ever had, and the houses will not be a frontier to cross. They will be the place the food has always been. Michelle Lamus got her window fixed and her air conditioner back in place. But the file on the animal that came through it never closed. Bear 203 had a history before it reached her house, and the department's own records made clear the Lemus family had not seen the last of it. Somewhere in the trees behind the subdivisions of Simsbury, one town out of 169 exactly like it, an animal that should not exist in Connecticut at all has concluded that the line of houses at the edge of the woods is the best country it has ever walked. It is not leaving, it is not afraid, and it is showing its cubs where the food is kept.